Hello, I'm Ryan Brown.
I'm Corey Fauner.
Welcome to xByte's Tech Chats. Today we are here to talk about upgrades. Upgrading your server. Corey, what's your favorite upgrade?
Just off the top of my head, I would say the CPU is going to give you the most. It has the most potential to give you the largest jump in performance. That big jump with performance does come with some risks, as far as anytime you're moving CPUs out of the socket, there's a chance to damage a pin. Thermal paste can get down in the socket, which could all be very detrimental to the server. So I would say biggest jump in performance, but also highest risk for something going wrong and possibly the server not coming back online.
Very nice. And Corey, I got to tell you, nice looking shirt. We have great taste, both the gray. As my daughter would tell you, that we both have great shirts. We can be best friends.
We are now best friends.
We are now best friends. Actually, jumping on the whole CPU ideas you were bringing up, not to kind of take us off topic for a second, but with CPUs, what I like is that nowadays you could upgrade bounce to like a 10-core or 12-core CPU and almost avoid having to buy a whole other server.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, you can double your processing power very easily, depending on where you're jumping from and to.
Yeah, see now, Corey went for the harder CPUs. I'm more of a memory upgrade guy. That with memory, it's easy. I mean, from back in the workstation days, I remember as a little engineer, I was upgrading my workstation with the memory. Just kind of open the little slots, stick the memory in, close it up. It's good to go. Very little risk with memory. Now, another good upgrade, of course, is RAID. Mm-hmm. And with RAID, as Corey was talking about when he and I were chatting earlier, it can be risky but cannot be risky. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, generally your main risk when you're dealing with upgrading the RAID card would be hoping that the foreign config will import into the new RAID card. As long as that goes fine, then it's as easy as swapping out any expansion card and reconnecting a couple of cables. And doing something like that, you can double in performance depending on the jump that you're making. You can open up a lot of different new RAID array options, so it's really, really a good upgrade.
Now, with RAID arrays, with Dell, the RAID 10, one of the things you got to look for is you can't just upgrade a RAID 10. You can't just throw more drives at it.
Yeah, like say for instance, you got a couple extra drives in. Instead of having a 6-disk array, you wanted to bump it up to 8 disks. With RAID 10, unfortunately, you wouldn't be able to just pop those in and say, hey, use these 2 extra disks. You would need to back up your data, put the disks in, create a new array, and then restore that data to the disk. However, with RAID 5, you are able to just add in your disks and tell the RAID controller, all right, now use these 2 extra disks, and it will just build it out without you having to back up, recreate, and restore.
Okay, now with the RAID 10, you also have options to go separate volumes. Mm-hmm. So you could, instead of having to tell it to increase the size of the array, you can always create a separate volume and avoid any of that. But for any of those, backup is your key. You don't want to, you should always back up. And if you choose RAID 5, you don't have to as much, but we don't want to get any kind of slam for RAID 5. We're not condoning the use of RAID 5. Kids, stay away from RAID 5.
Exactly.
But should you do it, you don't have to have the issues of RAID 10 when adding arrays.
Yep.
Now, solid states, move from hard disks to solid state drives. There's some great things now. The price of solid states coming down. You can really create a screaming monster server by going all solid states. But it's not just the screaming monster. There are other options with solid states.
Oh yeah. So you have a machine that you'd like to increase your I/O on your storage, but you don't want to put so much money and replace every single drive in that storage with an SSD. Even though they've come down in price, you might not want to replace all those drives and use the ones you currently have. You can add in a single SSD, and with the H700 1 gig controller or the H710P, if you have open managed, you can set that SSD to be used as cached. So it's going to use that SSD as caching for your storage, which is going to increase your performance. And best of all, you don't even have to bring your server down to do that. You can put it in one of the hot swap drive slots, use open manage to set it, and boom, performance increase.
Now, he says something also important, the RAID controller. So if they're using, let's say, an H310 or not the highest level, not the 1 gig RAID controller, you're going to have to upgrade your RAID controller at the same time to enable the Cascade. You can't just willy-nilly add Cascade. You do have to look at that RAID controller to make sure it's supported.
Absolutely.
Now, network adapters, another interesting thing with upgrading. People think, okay, I bought the server, it comes with two onboard network adapters, I should be fine. But should anything happen to that connectivity between that onboard controller, let's say the port goes bad in the motherboard or however it's connected, then you're down. There's no recovery. There's no connection possible. So spend a couple dollars. Broadcom makes some pretty dumbed down NICs. Just add one of those as a secondary connectivity, and you can avoid potential. It's a great insurance policy.
Absolutely.
If you're going to spend a few $1,000s on a server, don't cheap out and not add the RAID controller or not add a network adapter to that. Now, we were talking earlier, another something to look out for as far as being completely down is power supplies.
Yeah. Basically, xByte's motto is if you have a server that supports redundant power supplies, we would never want you to buy a single power supply for that. Why would you spend all this money on this machine with your RAID array redundant and all this uptime, and do whatever you can to keep the server up and then just have one power supply in it? Even if you're behind a surge protector, surge protectors are kind of like dirt speed bumps on a road. Every time they absorb a surge, their ability to protect you is lessened a little bit.
I did not know that.
So it's highly likely at some point you're going to have a power supply go down. So at least have two, and I'd say a wise thing to do would be have a cold spare lying around. So that way if you do pop one, you can just take the cold spare, put it in, and you're right back to full redundancy without even being any time on a single power supply.
And that's another one. You don't have to take down the server. You can do it. They're a complete hot swap. You can just plug it in or replace it and you're ready to go. Any other favorite upgrades you have?
A great one would be the DRAC. A lot of people may overlook it because they don't really think, well, will I really need remote management? The server might be fairly close to you right now, but in the future as you grow, you might decide to have that server off-site, a different part of your building. It's 2015. Let's get rid of this sneaker net. There's no reason for you to have to go down to the server unless you absolutely have to. By adding in the DRAC, you're going to get, especially if you do DRAC Enterprise, you'll get virtual media, several other features. It's a small cost upgrade that'll save you a lot of time and effort. And plus, if you do the Enterprise and it comes with a dedicated port, then you're freeing up another one of your onboard or expansion NICs. So that's another great benefit.
Well, there you go. Yeah, if you're tired, it's too much effort to walk to the server room, go with DRAC Enterprise, get your virtual console, virtual media. Or something common is your server's now hosted at a data center. No need to pay them for remote hands to do work when you can do all that through the DRAC Enterprise. All right, well, Corey, thank you very much for joining me.
Always a pleasure.
Ryan Brown, Corey Fauner, thank you for joining us for Tech Chat. And thank you to our sponsors. They have splurged. They bought us mugs. Thank you, xByte, for the nice mugs. And it's xByte Technologies. Change your servitude. A free trip to the beach with every purchase, or at least it feels like it. Let's not get aggressive, folks. All right, well, thank you very much. Have a good day.